Sunday. I'm sorry, that was a terrible idea. I didn't know why I tried to do it twice. Hey guys, it's Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic reread series for fans of all shapes and sizes. And, well, we have another stupid Sonic vs. Knuckles thing here, but I don't think I can do the intro from the Mecha Madness special again. I don't know why I tried to do that.
All right.
Well, I mean, it's an exciting looking cover. It certainly seems like there'd be an announcer or something.
Certainly. And this is an exciting episode because, well, we've got Battle Royale here, which is... It's either the first Sonic Super Special or the last Sonic Not Super Special, whatever you want to consider it.
Right, because they only called it a Super Special later, but at the time, it was not considered as such.
That's weird.
Freedom Fighters versus Chaotix here on the cover of Battle Royal, not Battle Royale.
Oh, I did not notice that. That makes sense, though, because it's not a Royale.
True.
I guess it's Battle Royal because they're fighting over the Sword of King Acorn, maybe? I don't know.
Is it supposed to be like a pun? Because that would make sense given these comics.
Maybe. But yes, we've got a special here. And we're starting off with Battle Royal, or Royale, whichever it's supposed to be, which is written by Penders and Fulop and drawn by Sam Maxwell, making his first appearance on the series. After traveling to Angel Island to retrieve the Sword of Acorns, the Freedom Fighters are confused to find themselves under attack by the Chaotix, while the Chaotix are just as confused by attacks from what seem to be the Freedom Fighters. This turns out to be a plot to steal the sword by none other than Mammoth Mogul.
I did not remember, well, because I never read this. I did not realize, I guess it's more accurate, that Mogul would show up again before, Endgame, which we're going to cover soon. So that kind of surprised me.
That is surprising.
I do like the recap page where Mogul is holding the Freedom Fighters like chess pieces. That is just perfect.
Yeah, more good art that has a bunch of text slapped over it that I wish we got to see the original.
Yeah.
I also like that it starts with, since the beginning of time, living creatures have fought each other for a variety of reasons.
Right.
I'm not sure there's a more general statement you could make.
I think they're trying to, raise themselves by being like, this is like a commentary on real life, not just in these comics or whatever. That's kind of how it comes off to me anyway.
Yeah.
But they're not even fighting each other for any reason. They're being tricked into fighting. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's not that deep. They just, I don't know.
They
Honestly,
really
I don't
want it to
understand
seem
why.
deep, yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why they have these recap pages so often. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So we're going to Angel Island because Knuckles, I guess, told them that he got the sword, and the Chaotix just immediately attack them with very, very strange-looking action scenes.
Yeah.
I have kind of a soft spot for Sam Maxwell's art, just in that it's expressive, it's dynamic, but it is so weird-looking at every moment.
Well, it's art that honestly kind of looks better when it's static, which sounds weird, but when you're not seeing action scenes, when it's just people standing around.
I don't know. It seems intentional.
Maybe.
So, well, I mean, who knows? It works is my point. The way that it's drawn a little bit, like Devin was saying, it's expressive, and so I think it comes off nicely, even if, these comics have so many different art styles in them. Honestly, I don't mind
that's
it.
true.
I'd definitely say that out of the list of artists we could have gotten for this, I'm not really complaining so much as it's just what am I looking at for some of this?
Yeah.
He has a real feel for posing the characters in ways that are striking even if they don't make sense. And I'd take something that doesn't make sense but is interesting to look at over something that makes sense but is boring.
I think that's fair.
And I mean, we get a big group fight scene that also involves Dulcie, which I think at least, I don't care for Dulcie, but I think having a larger character who can just kind of swat smaller ones away is fun for me.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the whole point is it's a bunch of different characters, so might as well have a variety.
Yeah.
On the note of plot, rather than just presentation, I have to say it really bugs me that Sonic like isn't even surprised. He's like, "Oh yeah, of course Knuckles would turn on us." Like
Sonic
never
is the
changes.
aggressor in most of his fights with Knuckles.
Yeah.
You say on the matter of plot, but I'm gonna be honest, there isn't a lot of plot here. You know, it's mostly just characters fighting, and then they reveal that Mogul transformed his fearsome foursome into both the Freedom Fighters and the Chaotix at different points, I guess?
Yeah, Mogul reveals that he has like psychic powers and can project illusions. Like, okay.
So this is just Mogul showing that I guess we didn't really see his his abilities with the one time we've seen him previously.
Yeah, he only showed up for like 2 seconds anyway.
Right, but I guess the idea is to show him off as being like this all-powerful demigod for no apparent reason right now.
Yeah, I mean, clearly Fulop had in mind this character as, you know, because if they were talking about, you know, the plans for issue 50, it would make sense that he'd be like, oh, I've got a character who can potentially be the big bad, which is hilarious because not only does Penders ignore that, Ballers, the lead writer after issue 50, also ignores that.
Right.
But they do eventually cotton onto the scheme, and there's really not a lot between them arriving at Angel Island and both sides learning that they've been duped. But then they fight Mogul, who actually uses the sword, so that's something.
Yeah, I am glad that it does turn out that, at least at some point, it's kind of unclear when they realized exactly. I think it was when, like, Sally was talking with Archimedes, but at least at some point they realized it was all a trick, and they were only just fighting to fool Mogul. So that's it makes it a little bit better, I suppose. I will have to say though, they were like, oh yeah, it was so obvious that they were actually just illusions. But one of the examples they use is, oh, you know, Bunny doesn't have super strength in her right arm. Did you watch Side AM? Yeah, she does.
That is an extremely funny mistake that can only come about as a result of another mistake. It's great. As for the actual rest of the thing, like, they fight Mogul, he has the sword, and then he's apparently easily beaten. I say apparently because he's technically not. But then Sally takes the sword, she knights Knuckles, and then they all leave, and Mogul reveals, actually, you didn't beat me, and I've got the real sword, the one you have is a fake.
I guess since you brought up the weird artwork, I will say on page 8, Sally has this really weird tired look while everyone else looks like super angry, except Dulcie, I guess. I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah, the expressions they're hard to read in some cases.
I think that it's, you know, a bit of whiplash, this story, because they have to be like, ah ha ha, but that's not what was really going on 3 times in this story, because obviously there's the first time where it's like, oh, Chaotix are attacking the Freedom Fighters and vice versa. But no, it was just illusions. And then they actually pull it on Mogul because, like, I don't know, we knew we were being tricked, so we actually faked our destruction. And then Mogul's like, aha, but I didn't actually get destroyed. I survived just because. Does he even explain that he just does it because he's cool?
Yeah, this is an extremely elaborate way to steal a sword.
Yeah.
It also puts all of the strongest people who could beat you in one place, so if he didn't get away, that would be very extremely insecure. Like, you just sneak into Knothole, do your friggin' psychokinetic whatever to freeze everybody, and take the thing. What's the point?
Yeah, he's just, you know, living for hundreds of years. He's going a bit weird.
He's going a little loopy.
Okay, well, you know what? Yep. That's a better justification, because that matches up with later parts of his character, so maybe that's even the case. Maybe he was so old he just got bored.
There you go.
Yeah, and to a lesser extent, did you mention that, like, on the last page, that's like, oh, the king is back and well, too?
Yeah, he's just suddenly fine.
They get home and he's just cured.
Yeah, just like...
it's strange, let's say that.
Yeah, that's a better word.
It's a whole weird story. It feels simultaneously like it's trying to be really important, but it also feels completely pointless.
Yeah, well, it's...
kind of...
simultaneously, the conclusion of the arc for the search for the sword,
right?
But also suddenly Mogul comes in and is important and then isn't important anymore because he just leaves. He also steals the sword. So the arc isn't actually concluded after all, but our
It's
characters
not going
won't know
to
that for a bit.
monopolize Knuckles' time from here on out, though.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
he's done with his quest as far as he's concerned.
Yeah, I got to the sword to them one time. That's all I was signed up for.
That's all he was contracted for.
Well, the second story for this issue is one where I can't believe I'm happy to see Dave Monick in any medium. Even if his art looks weird here, we have The Map, written by Tom Ralston, and drawn by Monick. I don't think Tom Ralston writes very much at all for this series. Antoine discovers a mysterious map piece, originally owned by his father, of something special and dangerous hiding under South Robotropolis. He sets out to find it alone and puts himself and his friends in danger in the process.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
Another
Hardcore
Antoine-focused
Chad
story.
Twan.
yeah, he
Yeah.
gets to be a badass in this one.
Yeah, like literally, he's a silly character much of the time, but there's like
Okay.
one bit where he trips on pipes, but like the entire rest of the story, it's played completely straight.
Yeah, he's super serious. He's being actual like commando.
Yeah. Which makes it suck that, like, on the first page, he's just a dick to his new girlfriend.
Yeah,
Like, why
that
are
was
you-
weird.
Why are you being so dismissive toward Bunny, dude? You were just making out with this girl a few days ago. I think you should be a little more
True.
considerate.
Yeah, come on.
Well, it just shows that Antoine, still has things to learn.
Right.
He, even though he does pretty good in this story, he still has things to improve, even if not in the commando aspect, in the social aspect, I suppose.
Yeah, in the aspect of having a girlfriend.
I mean,
I suppose he
historically,
creeped on Sally for quite a while anyway, so he
I was
really
about
is just
to say.
inexperienced.
He's learning how to actually have a relationship.
Alright, well,
I like how this story draws parallels between Antoine, one of my favorite heroes, and Snively, one of my favorite villains. Like, they have a similar opening scene where they both find half of a map, and they're like, oh, I must do something on my own. And in Antoine's case, he's like, no one can help me. And in Snively's case, he's like, no one can find out.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Snively, he got a couple tastes of leadership, and now he very clearly wants to overthrow Robotnik.
this is the first time it's felt like he's actually bitter about there being a war happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a really great moment. I like how, he's taking things more seriously. And also, the way he talks about how Robotnik must have come close to finding out about his treachery a few times implies to me that the writer of this story just completely rejects the 2 times that Snively betrayed Robotnik, but then they just didn't care for some reason. Like,
Right.
it seems like a retcon, which honestly, I would
That's a
totally
solid
get rid
retcon.
of the stupid way Snively acted in the Death Egg saga, and
Yeah.
that one story with the Void was fine, but that ending bugged me.
Well, it very much it's a smart retcon.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have Snively and Antoine simultaneously gearing up to go out and find this thing. We have Antoine in his, like, commando gear, and we have Snively with some egg robos making their first appearance in this comic. They don't quite look right, but those are definitely egg robos.
They're definitely egg robos.
I do like having the egg robos here, but it's an ironic way to introduce them when Snively built them as like a private army. Why would he design them like Robotnik? That's strange.
Well, they're
Maybe-
less designed like Robotnik in this because of how Robotnik looks.
True.
Right, that's true.
That's fair enough.
It's just funny.
But then Antoine gets there, and we have big, fun action sequence with him getting chased around and getting shot at by egg robos.
Yeah, a bit later as they like chase him into the sewers, I'm reminded of the fact that he always carries a sword, and I'm like, that can't be very useful, like against robots much of the time. But then he proves me wrong when he has a power ring and he's able to use it. I always thought it was stupid that Sonic got a monopoly on those, and he just slices the robots in half.
I know, this is like the best thing. The idea that anyone can use rings if you're like rad enough, that opens up
Well,
so much more
yeah.
story possibilities.
Well, it makes sense that anyone would be able to use them.
Because Uncle Chuck didn't invent them in this continuity, I don't think.
Right.
Yes, that's true. I think they just come from the Chaos Emeralds.
But Antoine slicing egg robos in half is very cool.
That is badass. Also, I think it was around this point in the story that Antoine's bootleg French accent is starting to make him kind of hard to understand.
Oh, the phonetic French dialogue is the worst in this story. I think it's worse in this one than usual.
It definitely is. I've noticed it with other stories, but this one, it's definitely the worst. And it's like, I started having trouble understanding what the guy was trying to say.
It almost sounds like they're trying to write it more as like bad phonetic German sometimes.
Mm.
But it wouldn't be an Antoine story, of course, without him accidentally getting some people into trouble, even when he's trying to be cool, and succeeding to be cool in some ways, because basically they chase him in, and the egg bots, or the egg robos, attack the freedom fighters, and so they all have to fight their way out.
I'm sure this applies to other stories as well, but I had this weird thought when I was reading this, when suddenly Sonic showed up, and I'm like, oh, it's Sonic. Yeah, that prominent side character in this story. And then like, wait a second. No, that's not right. He's a main character, but it was so focused on Antoine.
Well,
For all intents and purposes, he is the side character in the story.
Well, right.
But
I think what it
I
is
get what you
that
mean.
Antoine has a more interesting journey because he's got a character arc to go through, where Sonic remains pretty static.
Yeah.
I mean, Sonic's gonna have challenges to overcome, especially in the later issues, but they feel less like challenges created for him and more challenges created by writers not understanding who he is.
True.
And sadly, I don't love the ending to this because nothing happens. That he doesn't find the magic special weapon, and neither does Snively, so it was all kind of pointless. And it doesn't even really feel like, on Antoine's part, like, okay, it's not that he hasn't had any growth, it just feels like we're right back where we started at the end.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, we are. They really didn't go anywhere.
I have no idea what the weapon is supposed to be, by the way. I don't remember if they even bring it up again. They might. I'm not saying they don't. I just don't remember.
I'm trying to think, like, if there was any allusions to what it should be, and I don't think there was.
Well, we don't even know. You said weapon. Was it stated it was a weapon? I didn't think anyone knew what it was.
I thought it was a weapon. I don't even know.
I could be remembering wrong. I thought Snively assumed it was a weapon. Actually, Snively thought it was the crude zoo, but Antoine pointed out that doesn't make any sense because the map came before the crude zoo. But Snively doesn't know that. So, yeah, no, your point is fair, but partially I'm a little used to that because these comics just do that so much.
That's true.
And also, I don't really care all that much as long as it's actually a well-done story, and I thought it was a pretty well-done story. Also, I'm biased, but still.
Oh, it was definitely a pretty well-done story.
I was not feeling unsatisfied at the end. I was like, hey, that was pretty good.
I think it's less unsatisfied and more just slightly disappointed.
Also, I would argue this serves as build-up a little bit for Endgame.
Yes, it does.
Especially since Snively is going hard in his whole treachery in this story. And there's this great bit at the end where Robotnik comes and initially is like, oh, you were planning something here, weren't you, Snively? But then he just blames the freedom fighters, which makes sense because they literally were there, even though that was just a happy coincidence for him since he lost. And then Robotnik is like, completely forgets that, believes that story. He's like, we will crush them. It's like, this fits perfectly with what he does next.
Yeah, it was good cover. So yeah, that's Sonic and Knuckles Battle Royale. Bit of a weird special, but I don't have to put it in the rankings with the others because it's technically the first super special, so we can just move on.
Are we going to rank it with the other super specials?
I'm going to rank the specials, and I'm going to rank the super specials, and maybe we can ask whether the specials or the super specials are better by the end, but this is just the first one, so...
All right.
Fair enough.
It's automatically the best and worst.
There you go.
Alright, well, let's move on to the main event of tonight, which is the Endgame arc. In the lead-up to Sonic number 50, the writers essentially thought, well, this is a licensed comic, and licensed comics usually don't last as long as this one did on the face of it, but they almost always get canceled around the 50-issue arc. And so they started building up their version of the ending to Sat AM, you know, a big battle between multiple freedom fighter groups and Robotnik, you know, where stuff of consequence happens. And so they formulated the Endgame arc, a big dramatic saga of 4 issues, starting with Sonic number 47. And this arc is famous, actually. It's still liked by a lot of fans. And I remember enjoying it as a kid. We'll have to see how it holds up as a cynical adult, but there's still stuff to like here, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say so.
very much so.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting backstory. I never realized that was the reason that they did it this way. But just looking at the results, I love that they decided to do, a 4-issue direct tied together arc. That's what I think. Well, I love continuity. I feel like it gives it a lot more room to actually be developed rather than rushed and nothing happens at the end like they do a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, and for
Yeah.
50 being our second milestone story, I know we're going to talk through 47, 48, 49 first, but it did definitely establish a precedent of Sonic milestone issues being big paradigm shifts, because 75 is going to be a big shift, 100 is going to be a big shift, 125 is going to be a big shift, 150 is going to be the most disgusting, horrible comic we've ever read. So, it's always going to be something interesting. But Sonic number 47 starts with Taking the Fall, written by Penders and drawn by Mawini. While preparing to launch their final attack on Robotnik's fortress, Sally is sent plummeting to the ground and left in critical condition seemingly by Sonic, who is arrested and imprisoned for his crime.
Yeah, so this is the setup issue.
But yeah, we're starting with all of our freedom fighter groups, plus the Wolves and Dr. Quack for some reason, scoping out Robotnik's base, and Sally is kind of like lost in her thoughts because like nobody told her the king was cured and he just kind of acted like a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This really confused and bothered me when I first read it. Luckily, there's an explanation. But yeah, he's just back and he's like, "Oh, you can't trust your good friend Sonic, Sally. You're so disappointing." Just seriously, like, what is he doing? It's very strange. But yeah, the Wolfpack are here because, well, it's obvious there's going to be treachery with them. But Dr. Quack literally comments, "Why am I here? He's just here because when Sally falls, he has to treat her." But there's no, like, plot convenience.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Right.
if we were really, assigning roles, it's like, it's not wrong for a unit to have a medical officer, but they don't say that.
True.
They explicitly say, why the hell is this guy here?
Well, and
Well,
more
and
importantly,
the
he's
reasoning
not
is literally
combat.
just because you were ordered to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the big moment of this issue is that Sonic and Sally are scoping out Robotropolis. Sonic climbs into a vent. Sally climbs up a rope, or climbs down a rope, rather. And then we see what appears to be Sonic whip out a pocket knife, cut the rope. Sally falls to the ground, and she's dead.
Damn.
Yeah. Can someone explain to me what their plan was supposed to be? Because the king was like, keep an eye on him, and then they just separated. Sonic goes off to solo Robotnik. Huh? How is that sticking together and keeping an eye on him? Was she supposed to support? Because he doesn't seem surprised that she's not there until later when everyone leaves him behind.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really weird. I don't know what they're planning. Well, why are the others just hanging out? What are they? I guess they're just waiting to attack in full force. Except if Sonic's going to fight Robotnik himself, they're just gonna have more badniks to fight. I don't know.
As I said, it would make more sense if he wasn't surprised, but he seemed fully prepared to just solo him.
Right.
So I don't get it.
Yeah. Oh, what's that? We're ignoring the plot point? No, I wasn't joking. Sally literally does die here, I might add. Bunny and the others rush in, and they find Princess Sally, and, while Sonic's busy with Robotnik, they take her back, and Dr. Quack is gotta get her back, but they end up pronouncing her dead.
So, I mean, you can't convince me that that's the truth. I mean, they play it up, but this is part 1 of the final arc. I never believed this first reading it, and looking at it now, I'm like, you don't know how stories are put together. This is just drama.
Right.
Do you not know the story of this?
Oh, I know that was the intention, and if I was reading this and that was the way it actually played out, I would have been shocked to not have it been undone by the end. But instead, it plays the way it usually does.
Yeah. No, I guess it's, it's whether you're choosing the lesser of two evils. Either you go with Ken Pender's original intention, where he said, like, "Oh, Sally cramped Sonic's style. I discovered that we didn't like her very much." And this is what I was setting up when we were talking with the Sally miniseries. Ken says that people hated Sally, and I think he exclusively says that because the miniseries didn't sell well. And so his decision on how to improve this was to kill her off. And only later did Sega tell him, like, "No, you can't do that, idiot."
I think
I just find it
something.
fascinating to read this comic in retrospect, knowing that of course they're bringing her back. Of course they're not literally killing her off, but that's crazy. What are you talking about?
Right.
Okay, for a second, I'll pretend like I read through all these and she died, and she's still dead at the end. This is so underwhelming as a death scene. It's like, nope, she's just dead. Like, she falls when she was climbing on a rope. I mean, I guess it's slightly dramatic because there's like the thing about, oh, did Sonic kill her? But like, that's just a weird way to do it. You know, I mean, I guess, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything more to say about that. I'm not sure why they would have done it that way. That's not how you kill off a prominent heroic character.
No, and this is like I think I mentioned it before. This is kind of a theme with Pender's work, is that he tends to have characters die in really uninteresting ways, which I guess is more accurate to real life. But they don't like focus on that. They're trying to make it big and dramatic.
Right, he's trying to sort of play both sides. Typically in stories where they try to, like, you know, play it realistically, like no one has plot armor or whatever, characters will die unceremoniously, you know, in the middle of action or something, and then maybe later, you know, people will regret it or whatever. But that's not what they're doing either. So
Yeah, and no, I mean I'm sorry for jumping around the story of this issue, but it's like everything is overshadowed by this moment, and pretty much everything is about this moment. Everything is, you know, Sonic fighting Robotnik would be really cool if, you know, they had an actual battle. They kind of just run away, and then Sonic runs out and is like, "Well, hey guys, what's going on with Sally?" And then, you know, gets arrested or whatever. And, you know, everything is surrounding this, and the only real, like, recourse we get from that is the notion that Drago is a bastard, and it's definitely his fault.
So it's difficult to know because we're theorizing about what ifs and what were the intentions and whatnots. But I seriously, I think if you gave this to me on its own and I just reacted on this issue without knowing what came afterwards, I mean, it very much ends on like, oh, you know, things are going bad. You know, Robotnik is literally like, Sonic the Hedgehog is finally taking the fall at the end. They put the title at the end, which is kind of neat. No, I mean, yeah, that's part of it, and that's dramatic, but I wouldn't dwell on it. I feel like it would have been an insane plot twist to have her not come back rather than having her come back, even though it's, you know, meant to. If you're genre savvy, that would be what you'd think.
Right.
I guess, but then that sucks some of the tension out of it. Let's go ahead and move on to Sonic the Fugitive, not Sonic the Hedgehog. It's written over with spray paint. Sonic the Fugitive, number 48, which is also the name of the story. There's an intensely detailed cave on this cover.
Yeah, I love that. That's rad.
Spaziant just loves drawing extremely rigorously, like, line worked up things. It really makes Sonic pop out, though, you know, because everything else is gray except him.
Hey guys, Devin here in post to give you a little heads up. These next two issues feature a little bit of honest-to-God physical domestic abuse. Haven't really been on point with content warnings in the show up to now, but even though I think this is oversimplistic and really ham-fisted, it is played completely straight and there's no real plausible deniability, so I guess just watch out if that's, like, an issue.
So yeah, Sonic the Fugitive, written by Penders and Fulop, drawn by Manny Gallen. Sonic escapes from his containment at the Devil's Gulag, and Jeffrey is sent to personally eliminate him. Meanwhile, the other freedom fighters discover there's a conspiracy afoot, with Drago revealing that he orchestrated Sally's death and King Acorn ushering Robotnik into Knothole.
So, yeah, that thing at the end happens. Yeah, I like the way Chuck acts here, because he seems like, the sort of flawed, I will follow the will of the group no matter what sort of heroic archetype. But he obviously doesn't like it. He looks so defeated. But then, yeah, when Jeffrey starts stepping out of line, he jumps in. And then later in private, he's just seething.
Yeah, and Chuck is the only one that, like, without a doubt is convinced that Sonic is innocent. Even like, Tails is like, oh, how could he? And it's like, dude, come on. Of course, Antoine is quick to believe it without even a fucking hesitation, but everyone's mulling over what happened, and I just want to point out that Rosie is in these panels, and she's miscolored with red hair, because I think the colorist colored her like Sally. She's supposed to have gray hair.
Oh, that's funny. I did not realize. Yeah, I mean, you could interpret it that way, as, like, how could he do it? But it's also, like, how could he have done it? Like,
literally, how could this be true?
Yeah.
Right.
Likewise, Antoine, he's like, I tell you, I saw it with the two eyes. I mean, on the one hand, he's like, yeah, no, I saw it. But on the other hand, he's like, I tell you. So he's like,
yeah, Antoine
he's
really
not completely believing it necessarily.
Right. Yeah, I suppose. It's melodramatic.
Well, that is certainly true.
So Sonic's being taken by Nose Plane. We've still got Face Plane, or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah. And they bring back the Scourge, Sleuth Doggy Dog, for some reason. Actually, I think it fits.
No, it does.
It does. It's a good moment, I think, where it's like, Sonic, this is ridiculous, and he's already been in this sort of situation before, and, like, is he seriously, in the position of just a common criminal like him that I would have forgotten about if they hadn't brought him back? I think it's a good moment for that. I don't know. Again, I do somewhat agree. We've been through this before, and, like, are we really doing this again? Yeah. But it pans out well, I promise.
Yeah. Well, hey, we do have Sonic escaping his containment from an aircraft, just like the opening to Sonic Adventure 2. So.
So what you're saying is that Sonic Adventure 2 stole that.
Yeah. Thankfully, they did not steal the several pages, that is to say 2 pages, of dramatic narration about how for the first time in his life, Sonic truly understands the meaning of war.
Right. Everyone talks about
it's so melodramatic.
You know what? No, I'm wrong, because Sonic Forces stole that, because it has that line where Knuckles is like, nothing about this is good, Vector. That's why it's called war.
Oh, yeah. The comics just did everything first, apparently.
Anyway.
Yeah, so that happens a little bit. Then we get a flash to the King and Drago, and he's like, Sonic has escaped, which would normally, be like, oh, it's not a good thing. But, like, both of them are smiling, so, like, something is very much wrong. And before, you could just assume something's wrong because the writers don't know how to write a good story. But I feel like this is a bit where you're like, okay, no. They're planning something here.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something going on with the King, and Drago is underdeveloped enough that he could be literally anything, but he's a bit of a jerk, so
right.
That's fine. And we basically have Sonic just, like, speculating the plot as he's trying to escape, but doesn't really come to any real conclusion. But thankfully, we do get Antoine and Bunny in fucking Team Rocket bush costumes overhearing this scene with Drago and Hershey, where we learn that Drago, on top of conspiring to get Princess Sally killed, is also a domestic abuser.
Yeah, because we needed that in our comics.
Yeah.
I've been considering for a while now how often I'm gonna need to put content warnings on these, and I haven't done it yet, and I'm starting to worry that may be a change that I need to make.
I mean,
hurt to be safe, I suppose.
Yeah, just in case. It's
not like a major element here, but it's
but it's still.
Yeah, well, and it's such a banal, like, version of abuse, is just like, oh, don't grab my arm. And I think he hits her in a different comic, which is like, that's bad, don't do that. But also, there's so much more complexity to that stuff. I feel like, I don't know.
Well, they often sort of throw lots of elements in, and so yeah, it's they didn't do a whole lot with it, but they're trying to do something.
They really want this to be a serious story.
Right.
And that's certainly notable. You kind of skip past a little bit, though. You were talking about Sonic kind of speculates the plot, but I'd like to point out that he's remembering about Uncle Chuck, actually, who is doing some investigating. I just have to shout out that Chuck is always the best, because he's the only one of like the main heroes that actually starts digging into things, and he's like, I want to see Sally's medical report. And so that's great. And we also get a little hint there. Certainly now, you should be like, wait a second, there was something weird.
Yes, I believe this
with
is
Sally.
already the point at which they decided that Sally would be back by the end of this arc, but...
I figured they got told, no, don't do that, you're bad, after they pulled that stunt in 47.
Right.
So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Sorry, breakneck and out of order with how we talk about these. It's so emotional. It gets to be so worked up because there's so many good and bad things.
Yeah, it is very fun to see Antoine and Bunny sneaking around. I definitely enjoy that. But then they have to get like ambushed, bonked on the head, and then they're getting sent to Australia, which is kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I appreciate that they're widening the scope, but that didn't need to be in this story, really.
That's it. You're going to Australia. See you halfway across the world, motherfucker. Which, not that it makes a huge difference, because they get to and from it very fast across this arc.
True.
It took Tails like days, but anyway, Antoine? Jeffrey is, going after Sonic. He finds Sonic's cave where he's hiding out that looks like two big nostrils, and he's got Tasmanian devil dogs, one of the few Mobian races that never fully re-evolved. They're ugly and smelly, but they make great trackers. So what the hell is this? What do you mean?
There's some weird connotations to using not fully evolved creatures as like...
Well, and also, dogs exist.
Yeah. Well,
Sonic is literally having a dream about Mutsky on the same page as this, so we have normal animals.
To me, that seems like it's saying they're like partially evolved.
Oh, just a weird thing in the comics. The comics be weird sometimes.
So, big fight between Sonic and Jeffrey in the cave. Pretty okay fight, honestly. No, wordy dialogue getting in the way of things. Just last 2 pages before they cut something else.
It's kind of refreshing because most of the time Sonic and Jeffrey just fight because that's how they roll. They just don't like each other. For once, I actually, don't have to be like, this is so stupid, and I can, enjoy it a little bit from what it is.
Yeah.
But it is after this point when we're, hanging out with everybody back at Knothole, and the king is like, anyway, so here's Robotnik.
Yeah, he points at, like, I've made the decision to reinstate our previous warlord of the realm, which is just funny, because it's like, what are you doing? And yeah, this moment, what even is happening? Like, this was maybe the biggest mind blow in the comics for me when I was reading it as a kid. Just suddenly Robotnik is working with the king and he's in Knothole, like, just like that, when he's been trying so hard to do this the whole time. He's just there. I love this. This is such an out of the blue plot twist.
I mean, you can understand there's something going on with the king, and this is the point where you realize, yeah, he's a robot double. He's an auto-automaton.
Right.
I don't know if they say it in this issue, but it's like, yeah, okay. I do like Rotor finally gets to use his big gun, and it does nothing. It's like the equivalent of Krillin finally landing a Destructo Disc on Cell, and then it just doesn't do anything.
Sounds about right.
But yeah, no, Robotnik and Knothole. I love this bit because he just bodies everybody. He destroys Rotor's gun, he grabs Chuck and Mutsky and smashes their heads together.
Yeah, this is great. This is what I like about this version of Robotnik, is that, he can just, like, smash things and stuff. Like, he's got some power to him in of himself. Eggman is shown to be athletic in other ways, I suppose. He's even faster than Sonic. But it really, you don't see this kind of a thing except with this version of Robotnik. And yeah, it's great.
I can think of, like 3 instances ever of Eggman getting into a physical fight. All 3 of them are comics written by Flynn, and 2 of them have been released in the last year, so...
This Robotnik, especially after this, reminds me a lot of Kingpin.
Yeah, he's just kind of a big wall that you can't do a lot
Yeah.
to, and then he'll punch you. He's kind of a Mr. X in that regard.
Yeah, Mr. X is another one.
Actually, now that I'm saying it, once we get to the other version later, he's a little bit more like Nemesis, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, Sonic and Jeffrey are still fighting after this, and they have this big vote where Jeffrey's like, "You killed the woman I love," which is wrong because no, Jeffrey, Sonic didn't kill the woman you love. You think that he killed the teenage girl you're in love with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that line is cheesy, but honestly completely fitting because this guy is just a horrible anthropomorphic being in all respects. So
Yes,
that
no,
is completely on brand.
I'm not complaining exactly. And Sonic says, "You only love yourself," and then he kicks him in the face and runs away. So high quality.
Yeah, I think the comics are aware of what they're doing, at least to an extent.
Maybe. I honestly can't tell. It's a bit of a Poe's Law situation a lot of the time. But I'm enjoying it.
No, yeah, this is a solid issue, I would say. The last one, I can see where you were coming from, but I think it's starting to pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sonic runs out of the cave and Jeffrey shoots at him, and so he just jumps off the cliff. I think what really, makes this story feel like it's so much better than before is just that it's all these characters genuinely struggling with terrible things happening.
Well, that's one of the more satisfying sort of storytelling styles. It's like things start out the status quo, I suppose, which isn't great because Robotnik is trying to take over the world or whatever. But
Right.
at least everyone's safe and not whole. And then things just deteriorate farther and farther. So yeah.
Yeah, it does genuinely feel like a climax. But yeah, that's our to be continued. So we continue on to Sonic the Hedgehog number 49. It doesn't say Sonic the Fugitive anymore. And wow, this cover is really hard to read. I was talking about liking the cave detail on the other one. This is how you do it wrong, because there is so much lines on the waterfall and the foliage and the woodchuck guy with the Tasmanian devil dogs and all of the crumbling terrain and Dulcie. Like, you can make out Sonic and you can make out Jeffrey. Everything else is a bit of a muddy mess.
Yeah, I thought it looked off. You put it pretty well.
I think Spaziant is like... He probably, because he doesn't color these covers, so I'm imagining that, like, he finishes drawing it, and it's like, in black and white, probably looks okay, with none of the colors, and certainly none of the Archive's gradient shading, but then you get it colored, and it's like, what am I looking at? But yeah, the story here is Escape from the Floating Island, written by Penders and Gallagher, drawn by Sam Maxwell. The conspiracy in Knothole is finally revealed as Sonic makes a desperate break for Angel Island, and meanwhile the Freedom Fighters are faced with even worse odds than before.
I like that recap. Yeah, it just kind of continues falling apart. Speaking of recaps, the recap page has a piece of artwork very reminiscent of Battle Royals, actually, this time with Robotnik puppeting the Freedom Fighters, and I like it for similar reasons.
I wonder who drew this. It doesn't look like Spaziant. Is it maybe Sam Maxwell like the rest of it? I'm going to say it's Sam Maxwell. Anyway, yeah, so we start off right where we left off before with Sonic going over the cliff, which I can't use the he's going over the cliff Speed Racer clip because I did that a couple episodes back, but more importantly, Sonic's gambit here is that he takes off one of his shoes, flings a handful of dirt out of it, and runs on it in midair for traction to get to safety.
I almost forgot that these comics sometimes pull stunts like this.
Yeah, it's like, I can't even... I'm not saying it as a matter of criticism at this point, because this is just how the comics are, but the absurdity is palpable.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
I mean, even if I accept that he could do that, which, no, the whole point is, like, he's too tired to do his figure eight. You're telling me he's too tired to do a figure eight, but he can run on the stream of sand, and that's no effort at all.
You know what? I'll still take this over that just because there's no reason the figure eight peel out should make him fly, but yeah.
I'm just saying this doesn't make sense on multiple levels.
Yeah. At this point, Sonic should just be able to spin his feet in a spiral and fly around like Tails, but upside down.
Right.
Anyway, so that's how Sonic escapes, wherein we cut back to Knothole. Oh, and Jeffrey knows he escaped, so he's still chasing him, of course. But we cut back to Knothole, where we reveal that, yes, the king is a robot that Robotnik set up, and Robotnik is looking particularly disgusting in this issue.
Yeah.
A really good close up of his face.
Yeah.
This is just a minor detail, but I have to point out that Robotnik had SWAT bots in the last issue, but this one he has combots for some reason.
Oh yeah, that is weird. What is up with that?
I'll give them that the combats look more imposing.
Well, it's just like they changed their mind.
No, it's weird. It's weird to suddenly change that.
Yeah. So Robotnik mentions that he has a weapon of mass destruction that'll supposedly destroy all organic life on the planet. And we also learned that Dr. Quack was threatened to not reveal Sally's medical records because they're holding his family hostage. I like Snively pressing a button that's seemingly on his hand, even though he's not a robot.
Yeah, he like implanted a chip in his hand or something. I could see him doing that.
Anywho, Sonic gets a Deus Ex Machina in being able to perform a super powerful whistle to instantly summon Dulcie to his location.
Did they seriously pull a Lord of the Rings and just let him do that? Like, huh?
I don't even think it's a Lord of the... Did the eagles in Lord of the Rings just materialize out of thin air?
I mean, they showed up. Actually, no. I think they had realistic time. They just cut.
Yeah, I think they're just fast.
Well, this is a comic about the fastest thing alive, though. So
yeah, and apparently that thing is Dulcie. It's minor. It's certainly not the worst Dulcie-related Deus Ex Machina of this arc.
Oh yes, I'm glad you. Yes, we will touch on that.
And the I'd say that the real sort of revelatory scene, which is also extremely contrived, but I kind of like it just for being so silly, is that we cut back to Hershey and Drago, and Hershey is just now learning that Sally is supposedly dead, but she's also at the same time learning that she's the one who killed Sally.
So, you can convince me, I suppose, that she thought that Sally was Snively. However, why did she think it was necessary to wear a Sonic costume?
It was to make people think she was Sonic, wasn't it?
No.
Well, yes, but
what was she told?
Oh, what was she told?
They don't explain.
That's a good point.
For the viewers at home who haven't read this comic, the explanation is that, no joke, Hershey was misled into believing she was helping the freedom fighters while dressed in a apparently one-to-one perfect disguise of Sonic, except the eyepieces for some reason have a lens in them that alter any person she looks at to actually look like Snively. What?
That also...
Why would you not just help the freedom fighters? Why is it a secret? Why did she not question it being a Sonic costume? How did she not see a single other person wearing it and not wonder there was more than one Snively? Did she never put it on before the mission?
Yeah, so when I read this the first time, and even now, I was like, this is random. What are they doing here? What does this have to do with anything? Like, it could have just been Drago in the costume. Why are they like, oh, no, it was someone else tricked into doing this? Much of this story, I'm like, oh yeah, all these elements coming together, that's cool. But this is just sloppy. It does not need to be in and doesn't make any sense.
Well, and what it is for me is that this is the biggest problem with this, because you can talk about the Sonic being framed or the shit with Dulcie, etc., and I have my criticisms of that. This is my biggest issue, is that the central conflict revolves around Hershey and Drago, two characters that we have basically never met before this point.
True. We saw Drago for like 3 pages.
Yeah, not much.
And has Hershey shown up at all?
Pages in which we learned to be suspicious of him.
And has Hershey shown up at all?
No.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I'll bring this up again later, but that I made that same kind of observation when this little mini arc is concluded between Drago and Hershey, where it's weird that they're doing this when these characters, we don't know anything about them. Yeah. I mean, I have to imagine they just probably weren't able to fit them in because, lots of writers and constraints.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope that was the reason, and they weren't just like, oh, we can just bring these characters in, one that you've seen like one time and the other not at all, and it'll come off great.
I don't know, maybe it should have been like, maybe you should have used Bunny for this, if anything, because then you'd have the dramatic irony of, oh no, I killed my best friend or something. I don't know how you'd fit that in. It would give Bunny and Antoine more to do than they currently have, which is to just be kidnapped in Australia.
Yeah, so that we cut to that, and Crocbot is back, which is interesting. I do, as always, appreciate continuity, and I like that we get Crocbot in Spazion's design, which we got to see a little bit on the covers of the other issues. It looks so different, but I like it. And it feels like, before it was like, oh, Crocbot, he's going to try to overthrow Robotnik. It felt like they were trying to play him up, but he just kind of got blown up. So now he's back, and like maybe he'll get a little more time. He doesn't, though, unfortunately. I got excited for nothing, as it seems. Spoilers. Really not a whole lot happens here.
Yeah, this illustration of Crocbot, is he just a torso coming out of that tank, or does he have legs in there?
I think he's just a torso coming out of the tank.
Very, very weird. So Sonic and Dulcie head for Angel Island, but they are immediately attacked by Knuckles for no reason. And Sonic and Knuckles almost have a fight.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And yeah, normally I would be infuriated, but it's hard to be angry when I'm laughing, because that frame when Knuckles ambushes Dulcie by just popping his head out of a bush, it just looks hilarious. Like, what is he doing? I don't know, but it's amazing.
Was Knuckles just in there already? Like, was he waiting for them?
Yeah, how does that work?
Knuckles was just waiting for someone to show up.
Very, very Sonic 3-esque.
Literally, that's how Knuckles is on the box art to Sonic 3, so you're right.
But yeah, at the end here, square up, because Sonic, Knuckles, and Jeffrey, it's all the people that fight for no reason together.
All at once. Thankfully, conveniently, I suppose, is the word that I'd use. That's not going to be too much of an issue next time, but yeah, it's sloppy. This entire arc is fun, but it's sloppy the whole way through, I would say.
I mean, I keep trying to put disclaimers and stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I like it, but I can't lie and say that it's nowhere perfect. There's a lot of sloppy parts, but
I do think that also embodies the spirit of the comic, where at its best, this comic has always been a little bit stupid, but we've had fun with it in spite of that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's no issue more exemplary of that than Sonic number 50 here. Look at that cover art. I love it.
That is some pretty rad cover art.
And this is the original cover, because this issue got reprinted as one of the super specials with extended pages and all that. And that's all in the versions that you can find nowadays. But the cover to the super special version is friggin' creepy. Like, Robotnik's face is just weird looking, and it looks fine here.
Yeah. That's crazy that they actually went back. Like, they overstretched themselves. They wanted to include more than they could put in. Ain't that always the way? But then they actually went back and included all. That's great. I never realized that in the archives it was a director's cut version. That is fantastic, because the end result, glorious.
Yes, issue 50 is genuinely pretty good. We have here the story For Whom the Bell Tolls, written by Penders, Gallagher, Carl Ballers, and Scott Fulop, drawn by Spaziant, Gallen, Ortega, Maxwell, Monarch, Penders, Mawini, and a little bit of Stephen Butler, who we haven't actually met yet, because he doesn't actually come in until a few issues later. Holy crap. After finally clearing his name, Sonic rushes toward Robotropolis, and the Freedom Fighters gear up to confront Robotnik's ultimate annihilator once and for all in the final battle of the war. And I didn't have anything else there, because there is a lot in here. They have packed this issue to the brim.
Yeah.
Indeed. Man, that just puts a smile on my face that they gave everyone a chance to work on this. That's amazing.
Yeah, and just the thing to clarify about Stephen Butler, he did a couple of the remastered pages, so we're gonna see him in a couple episodes. But yeah, this entire issue is kind of kind of a melting pot, to give it an affectionate title, where the artist changes every couple of pages, sometimes even within the same page. And I guess they really wanted each member of the team to be able to leave their own mark on the series.
That they did, I think. Yeah, so to start off, before we jump into it, on this recap page, there's another fun graphic. You've got like a ton of characters all together, and you've even got like a laser beam bouncing around.
Yeah.
It's a great little fun graphic. But when we do actually get into it, they do something that I would never expect, but I very much appreciate. In Robotnik's final hour, yes, the writers decide to drop some all-new backstory on him. And on a period that has never before been seen, even in Side AM. They're going back even farther. They're showing where Robotnik came from a little bit, with like these overlanders that are just other humans that look like anime characters and don't really fit. But even so, I love that they're doing this. I eat this stuff up. The backstory for Archie, Side AM, whatever, it fascinates me.
Yeah, we see that he was on the run from other humans. We don't know exactly why yet. I don't think they say in this issue. But he ends up being saved and taken to the Acorn Kingdom by Jules and Charles.
Oh, wow. The irony.
Yeah, which means it's kind of double Chuck's fault between this and the roboticizer. But he couldn't have known. I'm not blaming him, obviously.
Right.
We see that
Robotnik did help for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we do see that the Great War was between Mobians and Overlanders, which is their word for humans for some reason. And because this was drawn by Spaziant, we get a bunch of cameos, because you can see that he's drawn Bean, Bark, and Ray into the battle here.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even notice.
Also, I'd like to point out, because I'm probably the only one here who knows this game exists, right in the middle is the guy from Astel, I think.
Yeah, actually, between Bean and Anime Man, I think that's Ristar there as well.
Yes, it is.
Oh, neat.
So, a very, very interesting flashback, only for us to then flash a little bit forward to Robotnik with one of the few remaining Overlanders from that war, at least as far as we know.
Yeah, so I'll praise that first part, but I'm gonna have to put my gripe here, which is that how the heck did Robotnik capture one of these when we haven't even heard of them before now? Just suddenly in present day, one of them is here. I don't even know where they are. I assume maybe they were all dead, but no, it's just suddenly there's one here. Convenient timing when they were just introduced. It's a little sloppy.
Yeah, they end up having to come up with a really weird explanation for it later, I think. Maybe not. I don't even remember. Because this is, a lot of the Overlander stuff is getting into comics that... Because I read the entire classic portion of the comics. I haven't read anything past that, and I think most of that is in the Adventure Era stuff. Well, meanwhile, back at the ranch, we have this whole thing going on with now Knuckles is being informed that Sonic supposedly killed Sally, and now he's gonna attack him because Jeffrey and his goons are here. Even Espio gets in on the action by holding Sonic back. And thankfully, I'm putting thankfully in quotation marks here, Dulcie shows up, or rather she wakes up, and she declares Sonic innocent, and everyone believes her because apparently dragons are literally incapable of telling lies even if they don't know the thing that they're saying.
First of all, my main problem with that is that Dulcie should have waited a minute, because Jeffrey just told Knuckles to get Sonic, and he's like, you don't order me around. So we missed Knuckles punching Jeffrey in the face. But second of all, the idea is actually that she can sense purity of heart, whatever that means. And so she's just truthfully saying that she senses pure intentions from Sonic. She can't just say things and know them because she can't tell a lie. That's nonsense. And I think even the writers realized that.
No, Knuckles literally says a dragon's spoken word is fact. Maybe Knuckles is wrong, but that implies to me that if a dragon says anything, that thing can only be true.
Yes, but Devin, the way that would work is they just wouldn't be able to say something if they don't know it.
Well, Dulcie does also say that the dragon can sense the purity of truth.
Either way, it's a cop-out.
So, yes, I just had to point that out. However, I completely agree on the very simple grounds that Dulcie was literally there when everyone was like, I can't believe this is happening. And she was just crying. And she could have just said, oh, I said purity in Sonic's heart.
Well,
And then he wouldn't have been thrown in prison. What the heck?
Yeah.
Well, it's like you still could have had a lot of this conflict because it's not like they have to believe her. I don't even know why Knuckles believes her, frankly.
Because Knuckles is the guy that knows about weird creatures and stuff.
Maybe
You know,
maybe this
he's
is Knuckles'
the lore
famous
person.
gullibility showing its head for once.
You are right, though. I guess. Well, She should have at least tried, though, but she didn't. I don't understand. Anyway,
yeah.
All that aside, it's a really lame way to just close this door of the plot so that they can move on with the other doors that need to be closed, and metaphorically. Yeah.
Well, it also means that the shit with Hergo? It means that shit with Hershey and Drago doesn't even, like, matter. You'd think that it would be, like, one of them coming out and saying, it was our fault, you know, it would be Hershey saying, you know, I'm the one who did it, Drago tricked me. But no.
I like that you just accidentally created their ship name.
Oh, no.
I hope nobody ships that.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, it's time for the comic to focus on everybody else while Sonic and Knuckles are heading back to the conflict. So we've got Tails and Rotor sneaking around, but then getting ambushed, and we've got Bunny and Antoine and all the Down Under guys trying to break out of prison.
I like how they show just how, like, psychotic Crocbot is. I don't remember how he was before, but in this one, they're really leaning into it because one of the combats is just like, 4 prisoners just blew themselves up. Crocbot's like, oh, too bad. I was looking forward to torturing them. Oh, well, I still have 3 others.
Yeah, what a dick. And yeah, there's a lot of action in here, a lot of fighting robots.
Yes, that is certainly true. The whole Down Under plot turns out to not be all that important. They just wanted to make it more grand, which I'll give them some credit for trying that. But, like, there's an uprising and Crocbot's like, oh, I already sent you the materials, Robotnik, so don't worry. The plot can still go forward. And what everyone was doing here kind of didn't help, actually.
Well, Bunny and Antoine, I believe, do manage to get one thing from here that has some amount of consequence.
So I'm like, this plot is basically wrapped up, but they do get to see a little something later.
So yeah, big group fight with everybody, but Sonic catches, or rather sees out of his eyes. There's an extremely weird close-up of Sonic's eyes on this Sam Maxwell 2-page spread, where he sees Drago running away. I don't know why he has to have it be, like, so detailed. It's weird.
So, yes, that happens. Before we move too far, I have to point out the excellent bit of fan service on page 13 when the Freedom Fighters are shown being loaded up into animal capsules from the games.
Oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's great. I didn't even realize that.
Oh.
I appreciate details like that.
I forget this is a video game comic sometimes, and so I don't even notice things like that. So...
But then, yeah, we get to see Antoine and Bunny back in Down Under, see just some random recording, as you make random recordings about your evil plans. It's fine. Where Robotnik is talking about how he's made the ultimate annihilator that will destroy everything. Wahahaha.
And from my understanding, the ultimate annihilator is just a big cannon.
Yet in this story, it's really not super clear. But they kind of explain it more after the fact. It's your good old-fashioned just erasure weapon. It just erases it, however that works.
It's the kill everything gun.
Basically.
I mean, that is basically what its purpose is.
Yeah, it's just... Robotnik's gone completely overboard, and he's like utter destruction and nothing else. I mean, he's literally got, like, everyone where he wants them, at least as far as he's aware of. Obviously, there are things happening, but for a little bit, and then he's like, no, I have to do this the most ridiculous, over-the-top way possible, which is perfectly in character.
After that, we get back to the thing that Sonic was looking at before, which is Drago running away because he's a cowardly bastard. And being confronted by Hershey, who, like, acts all, like, sexy furry girl toward him, and then starts beating the shit out of him.
I mean, that's good for her.
I'm
Yeah.
not complaining.
Yeah, this moment comes off as satisfying, like, oh yeah, beat him up, get him. But at the same time, I'm like, moments like this usually have more build up, though. This is the
Yeah.
moment that I was talking about, where I realized, these two characters, they were trying to do a thing with them, but one of them we barely knew, and the other one we literally did not know until this arc. So it's weird.
It's the soap opera energy.
Well, and especially knowing that
do that?
on the first page with Drago running away, you can see that one's drawn by Dave Monick. The entire rest of the page, the entire rest of the next page, and then the first panel of the third page is drawn by Stephen Butler, which means that originally it's just Drago running away and then the rock hitting him and then Sonic getting there. That was how the original comic was. All of this other stuff was added in extra, so we originally got even less of Hershey, even when this is just her beating the crap out of him for being a terrible person and an abusive boyfriend.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Which also makes it very funny when her entire body magically transforms from Stephen Butler's, horny furry art to Dave Monick's, Jankles the Echidna style, as I call it. I'm not really complaining. I do like her hitting him in the head with a rock.
So, did the original actually show her throwing the rock?
Nope, he's just running, he gets hit, and then
He gets hit with the rock, and then Hershey's standing angrily over him. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's sort of implied.
I guess, yeah, that she, threw the rock at him, but that's weird continuity-wise. Also, Sonic is making a great face at the bottom of this page.
Yeah, he looks so angry when he's trying to comfort her.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of a weird scene when you know the context of it. It works okay outside of that. I think that it's better for having the panels, because then Hershey at least gets something instead of feeling like a footnote in a story that partially revolves around her.
No, yeah, I agree. Once again, I very much appreciate that they did an extended edition.
So now it's time for sort of the final assault on the Robotropolis base.
Yeah, so at this moment, it kind of dawned on me. Maybe this is obvious to you two, but I just realized that Robotnik really actually was thinking this through, because Sonic runs over to just solo Robotnik, as he does. It's inevitable. That's how this is going to end. And so Robotnik literally knew that was what was going to happen. I mean, he tried it at the start of the arc too. And so the whole elaborate plan was just to get rid of Sonic at least long enough that he could eliminate everyone else. Or I guess apparently the Ultimate Annihilator was just supposed to hit everyone, which is insane. But yeah, and it was only because right here in the nick of time, Sonic managed to escape and finally get back, stop beating up Jeffrey and Knuckles and all of them. It feels like Robotnik did everything right, but just in the nick of time, as is always the case.
Yeah, and this is an 8-page assault with all of the Butler extras included. That being the point where Sonic's fight with Snively with his I don't know if it's a chemical spray weapon or something.
He doesn't really get a chance to use it at all. But yeah, I do like that Snively gets some battle equipment, because I don't think we've seen him doing that before. He operates big machines and stuff, but that's a new thing, I suppose.
Well, and you can tell that he hasn't fought before because Sonic beats him very easily.
True.
But he meets up with...
the thought that counts.
Yeah, and he meets up with Bunny and Antoine, who have stolen this miniature nuke, I guess, from Down Under.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Uh-huh.
Just a casual miniature nuke.
As you have.
Metal Gear Solid, yep. So they're going to use that to sabotage the Ultimate Annihilator, which we don't need to go over the problems with nukes in these comics. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. On a different note, I like that as Antoine and Bunny are going around here, they're being so sweet to each other. Antoine is calling Bunny my chérie. It's adorable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love Antoine and Bunny as a couple because they are genuinely happy together and are mostly, I should stress mostly, divorced from the soap opera drama. They just like each other. And, part of that is probably that they didn't have too much focus, that somebody felt the need to force unnecessary drama in there.
Right.
Right, perfect balance.
But Robotnik is loading up the cannon, Sonic breaks in, and we have the real final battle. As he's firing it, as it's charging, I guess. Is it charging or is it actually firing?
Charging a station in orbit, I think. which is actually going to fire the big boy hit.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah,
Well,
so
it
he
does-
uses satellites to like direct the
Right.
blast.
So he's like
and it does
charging
hit
up
knothole,
solar
even though we know
panels.
that it doesn't work. Yeah.
I find it funny that you will accept that is obvious, that it doesn't actually destroy knothole. But yes, that aside, I eat this trope up because then Sonic just goes complete like, how dare you, I'm gonna kill you mode. You know, here that's lost everything. That's great.
Yeah. And the actual fight between Sonic and Robotnik, we finally get to the climax here, which of course means that they're going to let Spaziant draw it, thank God. Although, actually, the
Thank Jesus.
The preceding pages are Butler, who does an okay job, but...
yeah, but the actual, I love that they're literally just going man to man. They're just beating each other.
Yeah, this is excellent. There's this little bit where, like, the Ultimate Annihilator, like, malfunctions. And so it's gonna, like, destroy everything. And it's like, Sonic and Robotnik realize this, but even so, they're going to finish this. And then, just completely without dialogue, again, no silly quips in these last bit of their confrontation. They just ham on each other. It's really good.
They punch each other a lot, and Robotnik uses the jet boots, which again we don't see that much, but with Spaziant drawing it, and he's actually allowed to fly around and have his cape flying, and Sonic is bouncing off the walls, spin dashing left and right, getting shot at.
Yeah, I love the one where Sonic is shown bouncing up and down. Very good way of capturing like movement in a static image.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the comic book equivalent to Sakuga. You definitely see this with, like, you know, a big Naoto Shishida camera movement if this were Dragon Ball or something. I don't know. And I also love the panel of, you know, as the Ultimate Annihilator is exploding thanks to the bomb, the explosive waves are, like, cutting through Sonic and Robotnik, but they're just punching each other anyway.
Yeah, like I said, they're going to finish this, and they don't even care. And then, yeah, it leads to this great sort of minimalistic... Well, it's just a sketch, really, right?
It's penciled, yeah. It's cross-hatched.
It's a very nice drawing.
I'm glad there's no text over it also.
Yeah, no, that is good. And then just a completely blank page after that for, you know, suspense.
Yeah. And after all that, everything has exploded, and ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robotnik, the man that we've been fighting for so many issues, is dead. Genuinely.
I feel like saying dead is not given credit. He's been literally removed.
Yeah, he fell victim to his own erasure weapon.
Yeah, he's literally been erased from existence.
No body, no nothing. Gone forever, without a trace. Yeah, I cannot overstate how mind-blowing this was reading it the first time.
I can imagine.
What the heck? I got Sonic Archives volume, 13, I think, or something, and read through this, and I was like, are you serious? You mean they've done all this sort of jumping around? Robotnik, he has his serious moments, but by and large, he's a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He can't lose. He just goes from one plot to another. But then they just decided, no, let's finish this up. Let's actually defeat him forever. He doesn't come back. Few asterisks, but basically he doesn't come back. It's crazy, and yeah, these next few issues are going to be Robotnik-less, and I was like, are you serious? What?
It's a ballsy move.
Yeah, and in fact, we are a little over halfway done with this part of the Archie comics. The vast majority of the second half is going to have no Robotnik at all. Yeah. And yeah, no, that must have been incredible at the time for people reading, that it's like, really? And they commit to it.
With a few asterisks.
Honestly, I don't know if you want to go into the behind the scenes of that at all, but just from a without any of that, just seeing how they pull it off, I think it's done pretty well. You can't expect that to completely stick, but, well, contrast this for instance, with, the Eve 2-parts thing, where Robotnik is gone for like an issue. I thought that was pretty good, but, you only waited a month, and then they resolved it. With this, they do it long enough that it feels right. It feels like they won, and the story progressed, and it resolved, and so I have to commend them for that. They have to come up with some new conflict eventually, and
of course.
I mean, it's Dr. Robotnik, Dr. Eggman, he's the star. No, he's not the star, but he's really great. He certainly makes what's a lot of good about Sonic. So, they'll bring him back in some capacity. But
you cannot understate the significance of this, because this is issue 50, so that's about 4 years into this comics run, and he's going to be gone. Well, this version of him is permanently gone, Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we're going to get a different Robotnik, but that's not going to be until issue in the 70s, so there's going to literally be 2 years of this comic having no Robotnik.
Which is kind of insane to think.
Well, and it's going to cause problems because, spoiler alert, Robotnik is great, so not having him is going to cause a little bit of issues.
We don't. We're kind of we're kind of starved for a villain, or a major villain.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting.
That certainly is a righteous point to dwell on. But there are a few more pages of this story, actually.
That is true.
Yes, because despite all of that, Robotnik is dead. Sonic the Hedgehog, of course, is not dead. He was saved by a ring. I don't think it's his billionth ring. I don't know where this ring came from, but he is saved by a ring.
I was going to complain about that, but they later reveal that, Snively sabotaged it, so it couldn't even work on anything except Robotnik anyway. So I think it was inevitable. It's just the ring gave him, an easy way out, I guess. I don't know. Sure. Maybe he would have been lost in space for a while otherwise or something.
Yeah, it's, if he's got to survive something, I guess a ring is as good a use as anything else.
Yeah.
It's not like they brought out Supersonic for this.
You know what? That's my only complaint, to be honest, is that there was no Supersonic.
You don't need Supersonic.
No, you don't need it. It was still a cool fight without it, but I think it would have just been a little extra coolness.
It would have felt fitting, certainly.
Yeah, it would have been very fitting to see Supersonic used to fight Robotnik.
I don't think Supersonic ever appears in a milestone issue in this comic, now that I'm thinking about it.
That's strange.
I guess they certainly could have included Supersonic, but not for those final moments, because, the conflict there is kind of raw. Robotnik, obviously, as we were talking about before, he doesn't shy away from close-up combat.
Sure.
But it is close-up combat. He doesn't have, a big old robot or something, which Supersonic probably would have necessitated. He would just bop Robotnik around.
Yeah, you'd have it to ramp up the fight, and then you'd go back down to more personal fisticuffs. It's like the final fight in fucking Naruto, where they have so many different forms, and then by the end they're just two dudes trying to claw each other's heads. But yeah, Sonic gets out through the ring, but he falls unconscious, and everyone almost immediately finds him, so he gets taken in and wakes up, and he's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So clearly they're oh, okay, time to wrap things up a little bit. So they're literally just going through explanations and stuff, which, I'm glad there's at least some room to breathe, although the breath is a little quick, because Dr. Quack is allow me to explain everything.
Allow me to launch into... These are Hunter x Hunter level giant text boxes in the comic. It is a lot. And it's all basically stuff we already know, except for the fact that for some reason Knothole is now in a 3-hour in the future temporal rift.
Yeah, that's a really weird thing that we'll have to deal with a little bit. But for now, it's just an odd kind of line.
But here's the thing about being 3 hours in the future, only in a specific location where time moves at exactly the same speed, is that affects literally nothing. It means that you lose 3 hours physically, but if nobody notices at the time that it happens, then that means it literally doesn't matter for the rest of existence. It just means that your clocks got set forward.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, that's true. I meant, that's a thing, and they don't pull it back, and it's just weird.
Yeah, there will be time shenanigans, but they don't have to do with the 3-hour difference.
Okay. the main thing here that I already talked about was that Quack reveals Sniffly sabotage, which I appreciate. In the end, it was him who took Robotnik down, in a sense. Obviously, everyone else helped too, but
yeah, it makes me think though.
I'd like to think that a ring couldn't have saved Sonic, if not for that, but it probably would have. But I'll say it wouldn't have, because then it makes it feel more important.
Yep, and Dr. Cuck also explains that Sally is indeed alive, which is weird because they still have her sleeping in the Sleeping Beauty coffin, but Sonic runs off, and he opens it up, and he's like, I love you, Sally, you're alive. And she's like, oh, hey, and then they smooch.
Did you call him Dr. Cuck or Dr. Quack?
No, I called him Dr. Cuck.
Okay.
What is your problem with that character?
I don't know. Maybe it's my anti-Penders bigotry.
Honestly, I think Quack is fine.
Yeah, Quack
I
is
have no
perfectly
problems.
fine.
Anyway, back to this. Yeah, it's funny that they decided to end it on that note, just like they did with the Sat AM finale. They don't really smooch nearly as much in the comics, so it kind of throws me off here. But
I think it's appropriate enough, and we get a nice little. It's not a where are they now exactly, but it's just, showing everybody else in the aftermath drawn by, I think Spaziant drew it. Sonic and Sally definitely look like Spaziant.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is nice. This is the kind of epilogue that I appreciate, and not Quack being like, let me tell you everything. No, this is like a paragraph for each character, each important bit, just explaining, sort of where things are going. Well, especially given they didn't know if they get anything after this. Although that does not stop them from throwing in the same kind of tease as SADM, actually, with the last note being, as for Snively, well, that's another story for another day.
Yeah. Well, because that's a case of, well, maybe it won't be the last. Actually, I better check. This might not have been in the This might have been in the remaster and not the original. I'm not sure, actually.
Oh, really? Huh. Okay.
I'll check later. Don't worry about it.
It was.
Well,
it is Spaziant, though, so it could be either.
Either way, it's interesting that they did the same thing.
Yeah. So
anyway,
that's the end of Endgame.
So yeah, on one hand, it's a great story. I like it pretty darn thoroughly. There are its problems, but I am fine with ignoring the lows when the highs are very distinct.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, that's good. That's great. But on the other hand, I feel a little sad because we really are leaving behind an era of the comics. As we alluded to, things are going to be forever changed from this point onward. Obviously the status quo, and of course, something that's more important to me, the good old great villain Robotnik gone.
Yeah.
I love this version of him, so I'll have to say farewell, I suppose.
It is kind of a funny thing because it's like, well, we're at the end of an era, yes, but it's like, you want to say, okay, but there's still 2 years of comics without Robotnik, and that's different, but he comes back. But by the time he comes back, or sort of comes back, it's already gotten to Sonic Adventure, and from Sonic Adventure on, Sonic as a property would never be the same.
Right.
Yeah, so the Endgame arc it's interesting because as a kid, I remembered it being really great and just loving it thoroughly, even though I didn't quite understand what was going on. And then when I reread it as a teenager, or rather more as a teenager, because I guess I didn't read the whole way through the comics until I was in middle school anyway, but I was like, this is not that great. And now here as an adult, I felt the same way while writing my notes, but I also feel differently to my notes now, just in the span of a couple weeks. It's very weird. I don't know. It kicks off with this big shocking moment, but I don't think that it totally delivers on the implications of killing off a character people loved. But I also didn't want them to kill off that character. I think that the biggest weakness is I do wish that Sally had been able to participate by not being dead at all, because I like Sally getting to do stuff. Everything surrounding that is a mixed bag that coalesces into something that I do think is really fun, even though I'm not sure it's amazing as a story. It's weird.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's hard to articulate.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about.
I'll cut it off there just because you've said your piece, I've said mine. Bruce, if you want to say yours.
Oh, I don't really have much to say.
Did you like it?
Oh, well, okay. Fair. I did enjoy it. It felt like it had a lot of lead up, and for the most part, I think it worked well with all that lead up, and it was worthy of all of that lead up.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. It successfully establishes stakes and consequence, even if everything around that is questionable.
Yeah.
I think they at least tried, and I have to give them credit for that. They, it's a 50th issue, and it's clear that they wanted to make it special.
They definitely were trying. They were firing on all cylinders. But from there on, we're going to have some different stuff coming up. Not different from Sonic comics, just different kinds of Sonic comics. It's going to be very interesting. But with that, I think we're going to be done for tonight. Certainly my throat hurts enough that I will. Doing that intro was a stupid idea even when I did it bad as a joke. But feel free to share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can reach us at deepdivezonepod@gmail.com or at deepdivezone on Twitter. I have had a great time going through this saga with you guys, and I will continue having a great time in the future. And with all that said, have a great night, and we'll see you next week.